Hey everybody, how you doing? I am Chris Flowers. I'm the executive producer of the Biz Coach Show, here with Eric Whitmoyer, the founder of My Biz Coaches, and Admira Adovic, who she is the founder of Care Accounting and CFO. How you doing today, Admira?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing well. How are you
It's
guys
good.
doing?
Good afternoon, Amir. Great to meet you.
Same here.
Excellent
Fantastic
to
to
have
see
you
you
on the
again.
show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course, of course. Let me read you in, get everybody caught up on Admira, what she does, and then we'll let Eric take it over from there. Admira is a CFO and business finance strategist with over 14 years experience in finance. Her journey began in her father's grocery store in Montenegro, where she learned the power of financial know-how in tough times. Today, she brings her expertise to help entrepreneurs build a profitable business rooted in purpose. Admira offers strategic guidance and with a caring approach, helping her clients stabilize cash flow, grow their bottom line, achieve their goals with a confident understanding of their finances. Absolutely. That's what she does at Care.
That's
Awesome.
right.
With
Well,
a
Amir, great to
personality,
have you
I'll
on
add.
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I said with a personality, I'll add.
With the personality, there you go. So, Amir, great to have you on the show. Excited to kind of dig into some of the topics that we're going to talk about today. And I know, one of the things that I'll put this right out there for everybody. For those who follow my show on a regular basis, they know that I have a background in accounting. That's what I went to school for at NAU. I did not finish in accounting. I switched to finance because I got sane. So I realized that was not what I wanted to do the rest of my life. I'm totally
Good
teasing.
man.
Um,
Good man. Good man.
but I actually went to my advisor and said, okay, how do I transfer my credits and not lose any of the? Yeah, so I went to finance so anyway, we'll talk about all my background another time. But what I think is important to understand, when you created your company, it's 14 years. So congratulations, by the way. That's something we like to celebrate on here. As people have been in business for
Absolutely.
that long, it's a huge accomplishment. But tell us a little bit about kind of what went into your mind when you set up your company initially, and then what was your intention initially, and what did it evolve to, and how long did it take to evolve to what it is today?
Great question. It's funny you said that you started in accounting and switched to finance because I did the opposite. So let me actually tell you a little bit about my story and where it came from, because it's gonna give a lot of flavor to why Care and why we started Care. So I grew up in Montenegro, in this little tiny bitty country in Europe. Beautiful country. So if you've never heard of it, it needs to be in your bucket list. And yes, I'm a little biased because I'm from there, but it is truly the most beautiful country on earth, if you ask me. So my parents were entrepreneurs themselves. And when I was 9, I started working alongside my dad at his grocery store. My first job ever was an ice cream fridge manager, which, as the title of it sounds, I ate more ice cream than I sold. It's a true story. And my dad could not figure out how to tell me to stop eating ice cream, because you know what parents wants to tell their 9-year-old stop eating. So he was very good at, I'm one of 4, so he was very good with each child, learning what their strengths were, how they operate, and then tap into that to make them do things. So for me, I was always a kid that wanted to be challenged. Always. I always was that the overachiever, wanted to be challenged and prove myself. And so my dad said, why don't we consider this a business? And I said, okay. And in business, it's very important to know your numbers. I said, okay, great, because I just learned how to multiply, add, and divide. I got this. So the first number you need to know is your gross margin. And I'm like, oh, so what is that? And he's like, well, good question. I'll tell you how to calculate it instead. Eat less, sell more. And that's how you increase your margin. I was like, yes, I can do this. I will win at this game. And that's how I started learning all the know-hows about finance and running a business. And by the time I was 15, I ran my parents' store inside and out. Like I knew everything, including implementing new inventory systems. So like I knew all things
Wow.
finance. I know. And so then I decided to continue my education. So I came to the US as an exchange student and went to school for initially my first degree was in business economics. Then I got my second degree in finance. And then while I was in the outside world and doing the work, I couldn't get my models to work because everything was just off. And I'm like, what are these accountants giving me that doesn't make any sense? Because my graphs were like really off. Instead of like, you're supposed to have steady graphs with small changes. That's not what I was getting. So went back to school, kind of similar, went to my advisors, like, what can I do to get a master's degree in accounting, but not lose my credits?
Right.
And and so got my master's in accounting purely just to understand how to do my finance work. So that's when I learned, like, oh, there's cash basis and there's accrual basis. And obviously for my models, I needed accrual. Mind you, in the business world, most people are using cash basis, which was causing my graphs to look very off. So yeah, so after school, obviously I worked for multiple businesses from startup to corporations, including a multinational company. And then I decided that, like, I had this epiphany per se. I knew I wanted to go back to small business because that's the world I grew up in. That's the world that I knew well, but I didn't know how. So after my last employment, which was a multinational company, I said, I just need to go back to my roots. And I couldn't figure out how I was going to help small businesses. And so what I ended up doing is I joined a networking group with 100 entrepreneurs. And I purely joined from a research perspective. I just wanted to talk to all of the entrepreneurs, understand their pain points. And initially, I was not going to be in finance. I wasn't going to open a finance firm. But one after another, everyone kept telling me how finance is their struggle. Understanding numbers is their struggle. It's like a foreign language. It's like some people like, I just want to hide. I'm just looking at a checking account that there's money there. I'm good. And I'm like, why is everybody saying this? Because if me as a 9-year-old can learn numbers, it's not that hard. So that's when I was like, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to, open a finance firm, but we're going to do what my dad did, which is really meet our clients where they are. So rather than using all this jargon and make everybody hide, we're going to meet everybody where they are and really speak their language and use finance as a tool. So teach our clients to use finance as a tool to run successful businesses. So it started like that. And what it ended up evolving to be was very magical, because we were doing some case study with our clients, and one after another, the number one thing that they keep telling us is that what we help our clients do is we inspire them to build a business that allows them to create the freedom to create the future they aspire to. So while we were focusing, it's finance, we're helping them. But really what we were helping them, one client said, I finally got my time back with my family. And I'm like,
wow.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Another client of mine finally was able to buy the home for her family, which she thought it was going to be impossible. I'm like, oh my God, like that. So that's what it ended up becoming. And now I'm like, I even want to do this work even more, because like I started realizing it's more than numbers. Numbers are the tool that helping them, but is making much bigger impact.
Absolutely. That's amazing. I love that story. Ironically,
exactly.
we probably have some similarities in our background and the way that we were raised, and more specifically about, how it evolved for us. That's actually really interesting. So what would you say the approximate time was from the time that you launched your firm to it evolved to what it is today? How many years would you estimate?
So it's about 5 years, Mark. That it, like, when it's from where it started to what it is today, it took about 5 years.
Interesting.
Mark.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And that's phenomenal insight for me, because I just hit the 5-year mark earlier this summer.
There you go.
As a business coach. And it has, I've come to some realizations, some epiphanies have hit me, and I'm like, I need to make some slight pivots to the business. I need to continue to make adjustments and evolve. But ironically, a lot of the same challenges that you identified with many of the clients that you engage with, I now I have to share it just a little bit so you can get some perspective on my background. when I started this, I started in 2019, and I was going to help people. The majority of my professional career was in sales. And so I was a sales trainer, sales developer, executives in sales, right? So I did all my success came from my ability to train and develop salespeople. And when I got into the executive realm, I was there for about 10, 12 years, the end of my career, as I stepped away from the industry. And I was in the wireless industry, wireless retail. So we owned and operated retail stores that were branded. In that particular case, it was T-Mobile, but I sold every brand over 25 years. When I got into the coaching space, what was interesting was I started with sales. 5 months into it, COVID hit. And so immediately I'm like, oh, poop, I'm probably gonna have to pivot here. I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on, right? Nobody knew what was going on with COVID. It was like, we're 3 weeks into it. My client was deemed essential, so they stayed open, but they were debating on whether they would close down. And, they asked me, what do you think we should do? And I'm like, well, I was here to drive sales, so I'm not exactly sure, but I've got a bias that you should probably stay open so I can help you drive sales. But I wasn't really sure how to answer the question. And I thought about it. And I'm like, well, here's what I do know, because despite spending 25 years in the industry that I was in, at that point, I'd had 13 different businesses of my own. I had a coffee shop. We owned it concurrently while I was full-time employed. So I had a martial arts school. I started a trucking business. That was actually a full-time endeavor. I had actually had my own chain of wireless stores. I had an ice cream distribution company. So ironic. I did. That was my first business, ice cream. Yeah. And I didn't eat my profits away, thankfully. But I share that because I knew what it was like to have a small business. And I tell people today, when I engage with them, I'm like, I know what it's like to take an advance on a credit card to cover payroll. I know what it's like to have to make those types of decisions as an entrepreneur starting a business. But I also know when you set it up correctly, how it grows and scales, because we were able to sell our last company in 2017 for about $84 million. So the progression and the growth that you see, and I did that with 2 companies, helped 2 companies grow to over $100 million in sales. So the learning how to do that as a professional, getting paid to run somebody else's business, was just as important, just as valuable to me today as a coach as it was having my own businesses, because I know what it's like to grow and scale my own business. I also know what it's like when and moving through that night, the last company that we did, I was employee, number 9 or something like that. And we had, we did $1 million our first year, lost $500,000, but we did $1 million. And, fast forward 12 years later, we're doing about $105 million in top line revenue. So, to grow through all of that, that's a lot. Most people never see that kind of, they may work with a company that's that big. They may work with a company that's smaller, but they don't, to grow through that phase and through that with 2 different companies. I had unbelievable experience, at my back, and then having my own businesses as well, and knowing what I dealt with there. When I sit with a client, I'm like, there's very few things that you're dealing with that I haven't seen. Yeah. I mean, that's the truth of the matter, is that there's very seldom that you're going through something that I haven't already seen before. So I think it's interesting. And the last thing I have to say is the background in accounting served me immensely throughout my entire career, because most people can't read a P&L or a balance sheet. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason why I went to school, again, was so I could understand. I don't practice accounting. I don't do accounting. I mainly focus on finance. But now if I see somebody's P&L, I can easily be like, yeah, there's something off here. Something is not matching. Needs to be fixed.
That's it. Well, and through my whole entire career in the wireless industry, when there was an issue with the market, I became the guy that went in and fixed what was broken in the company, regardless of what company I worked for. That was a common occurrence. And the first thing I'd do is I'd look at the P&Ls, because that data would tell me what's broken. And then I go to the store and I'd watch the sales processes. I'd watch the employee engagements, and I'd identify what was wrong in the store. But the numbers led me to where the problems were. So being able to analyze the finances and the accounting was key for me to be able to quickly identify where to go and put my time and energy and fix the broken things that were in a business. And my whole career was turning stores and markets around, and entire markets.
I always say numbers tell the story and numbers do not lie. Key thing though is you have to have accurate numbers to look at.
Absolutely.
Because again, back to why I went to back to school is because I was getting
P&Ls can
these
lie.
numbers that I'm like, what? This doesn't make any sense. So it's very important to have accurate numbers, so have full picture. But numbers tell the story, and I always follow the numbers. And I tell my clients all the time, like, look, I can easily tell you where the problems are. Like, let's just look at the P&L, and I'll tell you where the problems are. Now, how to fix them, I can't tell you because I don't do operations, I don't do sales, even though I understand those areas. But I can easily tell you where your problems are.
Right.
They're all in the numbers, and so it's so. I hear lately, and I have an extensive technology background. I used to work for a technology firm for many years. And lately you hear a lot about technology, AI, developing AI everywhere, new software, new subscription. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, you have the most powerful tool that any business can have, and that is your business numbers. And you're not leveraging your most powerful tool in the business, yet you're looking at AI and like let's just look at this tool. Again, it's free, by the way, no subscription for it. It's free as long as you have accurate numbers, and it will tell you everything you need to know for your business. But then again, I completely understand that not everybody has an accounting background like me and Eric do, and finance background like me and Chris have, and so does Eric. I get that, and I completely understand. And clients that we do so well with is they understand that, no, I don't know it all, but I'm willing to listen and I'm willing to spend time to get guidance.
Right. Yeah.
They're invested in, like, every single one of our clients meets with us at least once a month. That's a non-negotiable. But I have clients that meet with us weekly or semi-weekly because they are so invested now to know their numbers. I just got off the call with one of my clients. He's been with me since 2021. He knows his numbers so well inside and out. It's impressive to me.
Yeah.
It's so impressive to me. And I'm like, amazing. So then we presented 2025 plans. We're at the process of creating 2025 plans. So we presented him a model for 2025. And we said, here are the scenarios. Here's what we think. What do you think? So again, we're not telling our clients what to do. And I actually prefer not to, because this is their business, and a collaborative approach is how you make most of it. So he came back with some opinions. He came back with some challenges, said, okay, great. So let's adjust this based on what you just shared. And we'll have a follow-up meeting to finalize these models so you can feel aligned that this is the path you're going into 2025.
Love it.
So important. Like, and that's, again, I'm not asking that and this is why we have meeting our clients where they are. And we also have one of our values at CARES, no judgment, zero. It's not allowed. Because we want our clients to feel comfortable that it's okay that you don't know something. It's okay that your numbers might not be in shape that you prefer to. It's okay. As long as there's willingness to work on it, we'll give you all the guidance you need.
Amazing. I love it. Yeah, that's a key. And I think that to your point, the no judgment, I had to learn that the hard way, because when COVID took place, the owners came to me and said, "What do we do?" And I'm thinking through this, and I'm like, well, here's one thing I do know. I've heard this statistic over and over and over, and it's, generally speaking, most companies are about 60 days from insolvency. Right? They could go about 60 days without cash flow and they'd have to shut the doors. And I said, so we're 3 weeks into COVID. Nobody knows what's going on. And I said to them, the owners, I said, well, here's what I do know. If most companies are 60 days from insolvency, if this lasts more than 90 days, most of your competitors, are a large percentage of them, are going to be out of business. So if you're asking me what I would do, I said, I'd muscle through that. You're capitalized well. You have the cash to be able to ride this out. I said, plus you can take advantage of PPP and the EIDL loan and the ERC tax credits. And I said, I'd leverage that. I'd sit on the cash. I'd lean out hard. All right. But I'd ride this out, because if you lose even 25% of your competition in the market that you're in the industry you're in, I said, you're going to capture that business when you come out, when we come out the other side. And they were like, okay, well, we believe in what you're suggesting. They were my client for 5 years, right? They've been my, so, but I share that story often because I'm like, I was like, well, here's what I would do, but you have to make your own decision, right? To your point. And based on this information and what I know, here's what I recommend. Of course, the very next question was for them was, well, how do we do this PPP thing? And I don't know if you remember that period of time, but
I remember.
Oh yeah.
The big banks were not working with the small business owners. And
Yep.
I think my client was doing about $1 million, $1.1 million, $1.2 million annually. And they were like, they weren't getting the support from the bank. And I said, well, let me roll up my sleeves and I'll figure it out. And so that's how I grew the business in the beginning, was literally leveraging those tools and resources and making them available to the average small business owner who had no clue what to do when this happened. And they were, completely frustrated and concerned and really scared in many cases. And I said, let me show you what I know and I'll help you through this and I'll help you with sales and I'll help you with marketing and we can tie this together. But over the next year, all of a sudden I see everybody's doing everything on Zoom. And, all of a sudden coaching became a popular, cool thing. And so I pivoted the business and changed my brand and we became who we are today. But that's why I started recruiting other coaches and bringing other people in, because I could see the potential. I could see how it was evolving. But I love the story about the care, because I think putting myself going back, I share this statistic with every client. So I've had now 63 clients in 5.5 years. Not once have I not referred somebody to a new bookkeeper or a new accountant. In 5.5 years, 63 clients. Never, not once.
I am not surprised.
Yeah. And so
unfortunately, I am not surprised.
And that kills me to say that. And I don't practice accounting like you. I'm not an accountant. I just understand the numbers. And when I look at people's, when I look at the numbers, I look at the P&Ls, I look at the balance sheets, and I'm like, your bookkeeper, your accountant is not doing you any favors, because, most accountants are set up to do tax preparation. They're not doing strategical financial analysis and helping you make good, intelligent decisions based on your good numbers. Most people have bad numbers and don't know it.
You would be very surprised to hear, or maybe not, that at the beginning, I was just doing CFO work. So that's really what I was focusing on. And the amount of times I got so frustrated with financials that, mind you, in order to do proper CFO work, you have to have proper actual numbers.
Yep.
And I got so frustrated time and time again that I had it. So I brought the whole accounting team in-house. I have a whole accounting team in-house, my own team that just focuses on getting books right. And we have very strict rules and very high standards that, and I share this with people and everybody is so surprised. I tell my clients, actually, again, today, another client called, we were on a call with a CPA and the client said, I have a rule that I want to file my taxes on time, no extensions, period. And the CPA said, okay, no problem. Admira, when do you think we'll have the books ready so we can start review? Is it like beginning of February? I'm like, oh no, January 5th, we'll have the books closed.
Nice.
Like, what? I'm like, no, we have a rule internally that by the 5th of the month, the books of every client are closed. Because I'm sorry, what is the point of having books closed on the 20th of the month and share that with a client? What does that do to the business owner?
Yep.
Nothing. Might as well not close them at that point. Because it's already 20 days past. Like, my whole point is visibility and accurate and timely data is what's going to make a difference for small businesses. Because even 5 days is a long time, let alone 20 days. Like, if I'm going to give somebody financials the 20th of the November, it's already 20 days. It's only 10 days left in November. Do you think there's enough time for them to make an impact?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love it. So that's so powerful because, in the wireless business over the years, particularly the last company I was with, that was where I really learned the power of the numbers. Like I understood P&Ls, I understood financials, all that kind of stuff. But what we got into and where we went really deep was understanding your core metrics. And what are the core metrics that you measure for your business? And every business has got 7 to 10 key metrics that they should be measuring all the time. And that's not necessarily P&L numbers. Like, it could be conversion rates. It could be traffic data, whatever it might be. But those core metrics all tie into the P&L in some way. But they're leading indicators of what you need to do, you may need to address to fix your business. And if the data is so far behind, like when we were where so there was a carrier that we worked with, very big national carrier that still exists today.
Not mentioning names.
They were making decisions on their sales performance on data that was a week old. Now, having been managed sales organizations for 25 years, I will tell you that the most challenging thing you can possibly ever do, that is the equivalent, managing a salesperson with data that's a week old is the equivalent of correcting your dog when they pee on the carpet a day later.
Oh God. Okay. No.
Yeah. You have to do it in the moment. If you don't correct them in the moment, they've forgotten about what happened yesterday. And they're focused on what's going on today. You literally have to address and adjust in the moment. And for an organization with 1,000 employees, you can't afford to be off course for more than a few days, because if you are, the next thing you know, it's like flying a plane. If you fly a plane just a percentage off course,
1 degree, yep,
right, once even a fraction of a degree in the course of a few hours, you're now 20% off course, right? You're heading to Florida instead of New York. And people just don't understand that accumulation of that little bit of off course. So bad data is the perfect example of that. If your data is bad for 20 days and you're making course corrections based on data that's now 20 days old, right? How far behind are you in your business? And I believe that's a big reason why so many business owners struggle and fail, is they're constantly, if they're making decisions based on the financial data that they have, it's almost always old and outdated and not up to date.
Oh yeah, it's we do again, another rule is we do daily accounting for our clients. So every day someone goes in and enters the information. So back to another client call we had today. So we had a finance call. It wasn't an accounting call, it was finance call. So we updated our models with what happened with actuals versus projections. And then we're looking into November. And my team member, Boyana, shows up on a call and says, all right, this is what we have projected for November. It's November 19th. Here's where we stand as of November 19th. Do you still believe we will be able to hit these November numbers based on what we have today? And let me tell you, I was even impressed with all the work that my team does. I'm like, this is amazing. Like I'm sitting there listening to my team, and I'm on all client calls. I have a very capable team. Our team is like top notch, like very professionals. I still show up on calls and like listen to them and make sure that, sometimes there's challenging questions that my clients have that my team can't answer, and I jump in and help. But I was sitting there and she went through this exact thing. Like she's like, this is the amount we have projected for November. It's November 19th. This is how much is already an actuals. Do you still believe we're going to hit this number? And I'm like, I mean, I don't know, how can it get any better than that? So it's so important to have accurate data. I can't stress it enough, because all data, like you said, and inaccurate data doesn't do you anything. But also the other thing I want to mention, because you were mentioning pandemic, and it was such a interesting time in our history, I will say, to say the least. And one of my clients, because we had the accurate data, and she was working with a lot of government agencies. So we were like, things are going to go and shut down pretty fast.
Right.
And the interesting thing with her is that because we had accurate data, it was very easy to analyze. It's like, okay, let's pull up our sales. Let's see which of these contracts are very likely to cancel. Which are these are less likely, and which is like, it's not going to cancel, it's going to continue. And then we created those scenarios. Then we attached expenses to those, and she very fast started making decisions, because she started seeing, like, if I wait the 60 days or 90 days, I'm not going to have a business.
Yep.
So she started making decisions from very and I remember those days because it was Saturdays and late nights, and it was stressful time.
Right.
But because we had worked on having accurate data and having like top data to make decisions, it made the decision making a bit easier, because it's like, this is clearly what we have. And I don't know what other businesses did that didn't have this. Like, I don't even want to imagine. Probably a lot of them, probably not in business still, but It's so important. Like I get it. Look, again, I'm sympathizing with people who like it's finance is like a foreign language. I absolutely understand it, but you having the right team to guide you and have enough interest to know, it's like make it or break it for a business. At least that's how I see it.
I would agree 100%. And I would say, I would agree with you 100% in the sense that I truly believe that the biggest challenge, because I constantly, when I speak in groups and stuff like that, I'll talk about the percentage of companies that fail within a year, within 5 years, within 10 years. And it's typically, I round up to about 25, 50, and 75. Those are the percentages that fail within those timelines. And I say, but you know what's different? Look at those numbers for companies that were actually acquired through an SBA loan. And people were like, well, what's the value of that? Well, an SBA loan, like it or not, requires you to do more due diligence when you get the loan. So you've actually done a better analysis, and likely the financial data that you're looking at is going to be more accurate because you were required, as opposed to just, grabbing a lawnmower and saying, okay, I'm going to create this landscaping business. You actually had to prepare your data and put it in front of somebody, and they scrutinized that data.
And you had to know those numbers.
And you got to know those numbers, right? Exactly, right? You in the banking space, right? And so to that point, that was a big, and the other piece of that is, and I'm not necessarily a huge proponent of franchises, but the other thing, franchises do not have the same failure rate as your traditional startups, business startups. There's a reason for that. There's structure and there's accountability. There's a sense of some of the data, the numbers, and that's part of a good franchise, I won't say all franchises, but a good franchise provides for you is they give you that data and they help you identify what that data means in your business and how to use it intelligently. And so I don't think that they're all perfect. What I do believe, though, is that the reason that they fail at a much lower rate, relatively speaking, both the businesses that were funded through loans, because they had to go through that scrutinization of building a business plan and actually creating a financial plan. And I think that similarly in the franchise space, they have that added structure. And your average person who starts a side hustle that then turns into a business, they didn't go through that. And I don't necessarily know that they need to, but they need to understand how valuable the numbers are. And I don't believe that there's enough good companies out there like yours that are helping educate them on the value of the importance of finances and financial data and how to extrapolate, what are the numbers that you should be tracking and what do you need to be looking at every day. That's awesome. I love what you do. So let me ask a few more questions about you. So how does CARE help business owners prepare for the financial challenges? You gave us an example with COVID. That was a great example, by the way. Share another one or two that you can. Let me ask this. We briefly, before the show, we were addressing some of the current changes in our political landscape. What kind of conversations are you having with clients, reflective, irrespective of political leaning or whatever, but as far as economic circumstances that may or may not be playing out over the next 12 to 24 months?
Yeah, it's an interesting time, I will say. So we've talked about the negative piece, which is with COVID. And I think that was I can't even put a name to it. But let's talk on a positive side. So I have clients who, despite challenging 2024, some of my clients really had a challenging 2024. I actually have clients who have been thriving in 2024, which is also a great thing. Now, one of my clients have come to me. So again, we're in the midst of doing 2025 planning. And by end of this month, we'll have all of our clients' 2025 plans complete, including strategic focuses for next year. So the other thing we do with our clients, not just give them plans, like, here's a plan for 2025. We also work on focus, how to elevate your finances in the business. So again, one step at a time, meeting them where they are. We create 3 to 5 points that we are going to work towards in 2025. So we'll have all of those finalized by end of this month. And all of our clients will have January 1st planned to move forward. And so one of my clients, we were looking through his pipeline, and it's very likely he's going to double in size. I was like, well, that's amazing. Like,
wow.
Of course, like I'm my client's biggest cheerleader. At the same time, I'm the same person, like, wait a second, do we have everything in order? Because one of our missions is, or one of our purposes is to grow with ease. And so I'm looking at them like, as I'm reviewing the models, I'm like, nope, this is incomplete. This does not look good. And first things that I notice is one is that structurally, he's not positioned to be able to double in size. And so operationally, he has to make changes in order to enable him to double in size. Secondly, his cash flow is not going to be able to support, like the way we have things in place now, it was not going to support him next year. So automatically, the finance one I can easily fix because I went to the banker and I said, hey, here's our plan, here's our projections. He's like, I need a higher line of credit. And my banker, of course, because I work with specific bankers, they're like, sure, no problem. Here's an application, fill it out. We got it. Great. So that is fixed. That's fine. It's now the operation side. And it's then, well, this operation side, there is the HR side. I'm like, wait a second. I'm not quite sure we have all these covered. Now, mind you, I don't do any of this stuff.
Right.
It's just like from a planning perspective, I know that these are key areas. So I have him now talk to a COO, a few COOs to see who would be a good fit. And we just did an HR assessment to see like, how are we doing HR wise? So all of these pieces. So every time my clients come to me, like, we're growing, like, amazing. I'm your biggest cheerleader because that's what I want to see. I want to see my clients grow, but not at an expense that this is just going to become a hard growth. Like, I still want you to continue having growing with ease. So important. And then I take it a level up. I always say, like, growth is great, but is this really what you want? What do you really want out of this business?
Great question.
So it's so important to understand what is it that he wants. And this particular client of mine has 4 kids, which is awesome. Time with family is so important to him. And so I said to him, like, oh, this is great. If you want to maintain time with family, which is important to you, and I absolutely adore that you're doing this, we're going to have to make some changes if we want to enable growth. And so he's now working through that. Like, we don't have a final plan. But again, as I was looking through the models, I'm like, this is not it. Like, this missing pieces. And I started dissecting what is the missing pieces. And obviously for him, there was specific that. But then I have an opposite case, a client of mine who was unfortunately had a very downturn. She's been in business for many years, and she works with schools. So she is a social impact entrepreneur, which is also very dear to my heart when people do social impact work. And she works with children. And unfortunately, and I don't know if this is going to get better with the new administration or not, we're yet to see this, but currently a lot of funding for children and after school programs has been cut. And it's very sad. It's like really, really sad because I saw this downturn. The thing is that as we were looking at numbers, we expected it. We saw it coming. We did not think it was going to come this fast. It kind of took us by surprise. But anyway, she was frustrated, of course. Everybody would be. But what I was encouraging her to think is, think outside of the box. How can we take the challenging situation and reinvent ourselves, still stick with your mission because it's really important to you, but do not depend. Let's not make ourselves so dependable on this specific funding, which in our case was government funding, because we know what's happening. So she so happened to go on vacation. It was her honeymoon. It's like, and she was like, I'm not sure if I should go. I'm like, no, go. Go on vacation. Go on your honeymoon. Just go. It's important that you go. She's like, okay, fine. When you come back, though, I want you to creatively think what areas we can reinvent ourselves and look for revenue that we can then control rather than be dependent on. She came back and she had 3 pages. She sends me 3 pages, all things that would work. And I'm like, amazing. So on top of that, then we created models because I wanted to hold her accountable to this. Because a lot of times what happens with entrepreneurs, they have ideas and they're like, oh, but that's too hard because it's new and nobody likes new stuff.
No one wants to change. Yep, exactly.
Nobody likes to change. You're like, it sounds good, but we'll do that later. And so I said to him, like, no.
You don't have a later.
Exactly. I'm like, we're going to do this now. So I want you to pick 2 to 3 of these, assign numbers to them. And the first thing she said, like, I don't know how to project this. And I said to him, I'm not asking you to accurate projections. I'm asking you to pick a number that we can then strive for. And if we do better, we'll increase it. If we do worse, then we'll decrease it. But I want you to pick something because I want for you to focus on it. So anyway, long story short, she completely pivoted. She found herself a new purpose. She also has a nonprofit side of it. So she opened a nonprofit to get donations from small businesses. So right now she's looking for small businesses that have extra profits, and then they'd rather give to an organization for better cause. And so getting donations from people so that she can continue to provide these lessons and classes to children in schools, it's so amazing. But again, completely two different spectrums. And it goes back to numbers are important. Yes, numbers do tell a story and we follow it, but it's more than numbers. It's so much more than numbers. And I feel like that's what we give to our clients a lot, is understanding what is so important to them and then guiding them to find that answer. I didn't give her the answers. I did not know the answers to begin with, but I was guiding her to look for the answer elsewhere, because where she was, it was not getting us the answers or the results.
Right.
Do you see why I was so excited to get her on this show?
You
understand now? I'm like, you don't even understand who this is. Okay. No CFO talks like this. Okay. No, but that's what I love about her, because she's at that entrepreneurial level, and she's like, you know, she's telling people to diversify their revenue streams, but she didn't say you have to diversify your revenue streams. She goes, I want you to pick 3 things. And just things like it. CFOs don't talk like this. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's a valid point. I mean, and to your point, she's not an accountant. She's not a CFO. She's an entrepreneur first and foremost.
Yes.
And literally, I keep thinking about the story with your dad, right? You know, it's like,
yes, the ice cream fridge manager. That's who I am.
That's right.
You know what? It's funny. We have this conversation. We talk a lot about leadership. Having been in the leadership roles that I was in for many years, what I realized was that my success was going to be determined by my ability to teach somebody else how to do what I did. And the reason that I was more successful than most all my peers in pretty much every scenario that I was in was because I cared more about developing the people below me than I did about getting the promotions. And I steal that from Simon Sinek, right? It's like you care more about the people in your charge, right? And so with that, it always paid me dividends. But I think there was the added piece that I never really considered until I got older, which was the fact that because I was constantly thinking about how to improve my people, it forced me to continue to improve myself. Right. And I think that that's something that your dad instilled upon you when you were younger, which was, you know, he kept challenging you to do better. And to your point, he recognized that was in your DNA. It was in your personality. Right. And so he kept challenging you. And my dad, ironically, raised me very similarly. He was harder on me than any of my brothers or sisters. And it was because
I don't know why.
I didn't want to ask you that.
Younger brother, so I was like, he would be tougher with my. Nope, he was the toughest one with me.
Because as parents, you see it. You see the potential. You see the this one I got to give him a little nudge. This one I gotta love on a little bit more.
This one I gotta back off a little bit and give him some space.
I have to say this story because it's so funny. Because initially when I came to US, I came as an exchange student for high school. Because with a high school diploma from US, I could register in any college I wanted. Because in Montenegro, you were lucky if you were getting to college. And again, I was an ethnic minority on top of everything. So I knew I wasn't getting to college. So I figured out that if I come to US, get a high school diploma, with that diploma, I can go anywhere and I can register because education was important to me. So while my dad was teaching me entrepreneurship, my mom was education. It's great that you're working with your dad, but if you get the education too, that's win-win.
Yeah.
So anyway, after high school, I wanted to go back home because, mind you, I was here by myself. I didn't know anyone. I had a host family. I'm like, I want to go back to my family. 1 year is enough. I go back home and my dad says, all right, I have 2 choices for you. I'm like, okay, great. What are they? Number 1, you go back to US and finish college there. And I'm like, that's not happening, but okay. And option number 2, you stay home and wait until you get married. And I'm like,
no.
What? How is that a choice? So in other words, he wanted me to go back to US because he's like, I see something in you don't even see.
Right.
And I know that if you continue education there, you will excel much faster than if you do it here. But yeah, he gave me the two choices, which were not even a choice. I'm like, he knew I was going to say no to the second one right away. So.
Oh yeah, right away.
That is funny. My dad recognized in me that if he tried to tell me what to do, I would do the exact opposite just because. And so he identified that. Yeah, I was young enough that he would propose to me. He's like, look, you make whatever decision you want. You just have to deal with the consequences. Whatever they are, you can do whatever you want. You want to stay out late, you don't want to get up on time for school, that's entirely up to you. You just have to deal with the consequences. And that had me pretty well up until I was like a junior in high school, where I did not screw up.
Nice.
Because I'm like, after I realized a few times, I was like, it's much harder to clean up a mess than it is to just do it right the first time.
Right.
And he would instill that and say that all the time, but he let me experience it. And after I experienced it 2 or 3, I'm like, well, that was kind of dumb. I'm wasting my time redoing something that I didn't need to do a second time. And so I immensely respect the fathering that your father did, because I can appreciate having 2 kids of my own, know exactly what that's like now.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's different. And it's funny because I'm one of 4, and my youngest sister has no sense, like that's not nice to say, but she doesn't have it in her anything business related. That she can't do numbers. She can't, it's not her thing.
Right.
But she loved to draw.
Yep.
It was her thing. She loved drawing. So we would always go to her when we were in school. We would always go to her like, can you do this art thing for us? Because the rest of us had no art.
No skills whatsoever.
No skills whatsoever. And so, but my dad didn't go to her and say like, well, you like your sisters are going to go to learn like how to be an ice cream fridge manager. No, he went to my sister and said like, look, there's 2 options you have here. You can continue to draw and be a professor, but in Montenegro, a professor or a teacher makes no money whatsoever. Or you can continue to draw and do what you love to do and make a lot of money. And that is by being an architect. And guess what my sister is?
Oh, amazing.
Really?
An engineering architect.
So
she does what she loves to do, but at the same time makes good money because she's an engineer and architect. So again, like what I was saying, like my dad was a businessman, but he really, really looked at us kids as individuals. He never put us in a one bucket, because like what works for Admira does not work for Drita or for Zoya. So he was always looking at us like, and again, my youngest sister, the rest of us are in business. She's the smart one, the engineer. But he recognizes like she loves to draw. What's the point of pushing her to do business things? She's not going to do well at that.
Right. Exactly.
It's not important. I mean, part of me, I'm like, I look at my kids now, mind you, mine are much smaller. And I'm like, how can I do what my dad did? Nope, it's not coming yet.
Yeah, we won't go there because I got stories for days on growing.
Oh yeah, so we could all be sharing stories about all that kind of stuff. Turn it into a parenting show rather than into a business
exactly.
show. It's already been a therapy session a little bit too. So
there you go. We do it all on this show.
That's right.
So I do have another good question for you, Admira. Technology. You referenced AI. You referenced, there's other. What does it play in your business today specifically? You referenced how you have other people that are, they're distracted by the shiny object, which is the new AI solution or whatever. But what does technology play in your business today? And more importantly, my question for you as a business coach, what do you see the impact of AI having in your industry, right? And what you do for your clients over the coming years?
So let me start with what we're doing, and then I'll talk about what I think.
Yep.
So we use technology as we do use technology, of course we do, but more on the efficiency side of things. I started implementing technology back when technology for finance was still not a thing. So because I work for a tech company, I used to sit down next to an architect and an engineer and architect, and I'll be like, hey, I am trying to put these controls in place. Will you do it for me? And then he would learn what controls I was looking for, and he implemented them for me. and made my life so much easier. Mind you, the company I worked for, it was a multinational company. We were in 4 different countries, and I ran the global finances. In US office, we only had 2.5 people. And we ran $15 million worth of business with 4 offices. I mean, 4 offices, yes, in 4 different countries. And I once had, like, I occasionally would get CFOs to come in and just like proof check my work. Like I was always that person, like, I want somebody to come in and tell me how I'm doing something wrong.
Right.
Like, because you don't have anyone to, like, I had the CEO, but my CEO was not a finance person. So I'm like, I don't have anyone to check on. So it randomly brings CFOs to just proof check my work. And I had a CFO once, he's like, how is it possible you run a $15 million company with 2.5 people? And I'm like, efficiencies. And we use technology to create the efficiencies. So mind you, my team or technology does not replace the work that my team does. We still do very much so a lot of manual work because we have to touch every number to understand where things are. However, we do use technology to proof check our work, to control check our work, to make sure that we don't have any mistakes, because humans, we all know, are great, but at the same time, we make mistakes because we're human and that's normal. So we use a lot of that in technology. We have a data analyst in our team who literally builds models for us that literally take the QuickBooks data, double check, and we have rules like pinpoint, like put it red if it falls within these rules. And then one of our team members will go in and say, like, okay, these reds, let's double check them to make sure they're still accurate. Very, very likely they will be accurate, but if not, we check this before it went to the client. Because we want our clients to have accurate information. And then we use a technology for dashboards. Creating dashboards for our clients, all of that we have. Now, what we don't do is we do not rely on technology to create models.
Oh, interesting.
Now, there's a lot of companies out there that claim to do models. Like there's this one company that I'm not going to name who it is, but there was this one company, and I get pinged all the time to check a new platform. And this guy was showing me the platform, and I had my director, Boyana, on a call with me, and we're looking at this platform. I'm like, okay, so this guy's like, I can take QuickBooks data and project cash flow. Well, number one, most of our clients don't even have accurate data to begin with. And so how you're doing that, that's beside the point. Right. And the second thing he says, we can then create, using AI in this tool, we can do projections of how you are going to be doing as a company. And we can compare your data with other people's numbers, like with KPIs. And we're like, oh, this is very interesting. Like, this is, at this point, I'm thinking, like, this is cool. But knowing everything I know about technology, I'm like, I'm already on a fence. And so I'm like, okay, so explain to me, how do you know the data is accurate? And they're like, oh, we don't know that. It's whatever the client has in QuickBooks. I'm like, okay, that's great. And I'm like, so do you take industry standard KPIs you compare against, or where do you get the KPIs from?
Right.
And he says, oh, no, we're comparing it to other clients that are on the same platform in our platform and compare to that. And I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. So if all of your clients you have a down year, and you're comparing the data to my client's data, and my client feels okay that it's within industry standard, like, how is that? What?
Right.
Right.
So I started freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. Because what you want to tell your clients, like, you are having a down year, but here's how the numbers compare to industry standard, which are research numbers. Right. Not that you're comparing my clients with everybody else who's having a down year, and now my client's feeling better about themselves, but it's not really helping them, like, run a business.
Right.
So for that reason, I will not be using models. I haven't found a platform that I truly can trust, that I know exactly how the models were built, what formulas were used, because again, I'm very keen on having accurate information for my clients. And the models we use, I have built them. I have used them for many years. And I trust these models because, again, I've used them for many years.
Right.
And so I can, like, that's a piece. So for me, it's very important to use technology to build efficiencies, check on our work, but it is right now, where we stand right now, and things can change in the future. Where we stand right now, I do not believe that technology is able to just replace creating like the models that are important for our clients. So,
Right.
and again, because I work for a technology firm, because I sat next to engineers and saw their thought process, a lot of engineers are great mathematicians. They're great at coding, but they don't necessarily understand finance.
Right.
And they don't necessarily understand that,
people.
wait, by me not including that little number, it made like, yeah, that little number that you're calling it just now calculated the whole thing wrong.
Right.
So really, really important. Where it's going in the future, I am optimistic but skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about AI. I've had somebody who actually said to me that they're going to create an AI to replace CFO work. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting. I can't wait to see this one. Because for me, CFO and what I think is CFO is strategic financial planning for our clients.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but strategy, humans having a hard time getting skills in strategy, let alone creating an AI is going to do it. Plus, how is that tailored to our clients' needs?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just hard
Precisely.
for me. So
Right.
I'm still very optimistic. There's been some great platforms out there that have helped with efficiencies. But again, I'm back to, can we use it as a tool, not to replace it?
Yeah,
See, but
makes sense.
I think that's the thing where you have a standing, you don't talk like a CFO, you don't act like a CFO, where maybe some of these CFOs could be replaced by an AI bot because they're about as, character, they have the character of an AI bot. But you, on the other hand, people want to do business with you. You're outstanding, because you get into the actual business and care about the business, which makes people want to do business with you, not with an AI tool.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Yeah, we have one, like we deeply care for our clients' businesses. And like I said, I'm their biggest cheerleader, but I'm also their biggest support when things are not going right. And sometimes I say, like, I feel like I'm running multiple businesses myself, because if my clients are stressing, I'm stressing. And so, like, if my clients are like not doing, like, I will get on a call with my client and I see that they're having a down, like they're feeling down, and I'm like, okay, let me pick up the phone. I gotta talk to them. So I'll get off the call with my team and call the client directly. And I don't know. I feel like we just have to put humanity. It's like, yes, numbers, yes, this, but let's not forget these people are humans who are running these businesses.
Yep.
Yeah.
And besides the business, they have a lot of other things going on. They have a family. They have like other things going on. One of my clients is dealing with elderly care right now on top of running a business. Like, it's a lot. And so half the time we just give clients a spreadsheet and then that's it. And I'm like, well, did you forget that this is a human you're talking to? Like, it's AI cannot replace that. I'm sorry. I mean, at least I don't see it. Somebody can put it
not yet.
fine.
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. I'm yet to see it, but this is where I stand right now. Like, I'm optimistic that we can use it as a tool, but I definitely don't think that it's going to replace what our core is.
Yeah. Well, and I think that in my experience, and I'm a huge proponent of AI as it relates to certain functions within a business. To your point, where it allows me to automate or get rid of or reduce manual tasks that can be automated and streamlined through those efficiencies, I'm a huge proponent of. As a matter of fact, the first thing I say to people is that another reason why I believe businesses are struggling today is that they've been around for 15 or 20 years and they haven't changed dramatically in the way that they operate their business in 15 or 20 years, which, the argument to me is, hey, I'm getting along fine. I made some good money. I'm doing fine. I'm in a good position. And I'm like, okay, that's today. Tomorrow, somebody starts a business and they have all the added advantages of technology because they understand how to implement it. They're going to hit the ground way faster than you did. They're going to grow the business substantially faster. And you may have some unique advantages, but you're not going to be competitively priced any longer because you're going to get priced out of the market, either because they can come in and do it at a cheaper cost, or they're, whatever. There's going to be a number of different reasons that are going to come into play. And you mentioned operations before and the challenges that can create. Whenever you can reduce and you can improve any inefficiencies and reduce duplication of effort and things like that. you're going to have a huge advantage over your competition. And most people lack the competency to be able to implement those types of changes in their business. And I agree with you in that regard. I think what's interesting, as you mentioned, is the finance piece and being able to project and build out projections on that. I think there's a huge component of that it will be very difficult to have an AI. You can run simulations over and over and over, but can you account for all the different variations? And really, it comes back to your point about data. Those extrapolations of that data to create a projection are only as good as the input that went into it. So until we are loading good information to create the projections, we're never going to have really good projections.
Yeah, I mean, there's AI tools right now, and I've seen it. Unfortunately, I've seen it where QuickBooks is just run on background AI, and there's automatically adding stuff, and we're like, okay, is this what bookkeeping is becoming now? Because
well, I mean, I was going to say just the simple function from QuickBooks where it remembers your transaction and then inputs it into QuickBooks. It does it enough times and says, oh, this is what it should be. This is where it should be allocated. Well, the average person, if they don't know better, doesn't go back and verify those. And then I look at their books and I'm like, why do you have 7% of your adjusted gross revenue in miscellaneous category? They can't answer that. And we go back and we analyze it and I'm like, oh, well, this is subscriptions services here. And this was this. And then we have to reallocate. And I'm like, you should never have anything in miscellaneous unless you absolutely have to. I mean, it's like, that was like rule number 1 I learned in accounting.
Well, yes. Rule number 1 and 2 is that every transaction, you need to understand what account in P&L and what account in balance sheet is going to affect. And there's so many people who don't understand the difference. They're like, oh, it just affects the P&L. I'm like, okay, it's dual entry, which means it affects the P&L and the balance sheet, not just one. Right. And I can't tell you how many times, and I actually have a disaster story. A client of mine, I don't do accounting, but I am nosy. I am the type of person that if something is not making sense to me, I will dig. And so the CPA sends me this report for a client and says like, hey, here's all the distributions that happened over the years, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. Mind you, I also don't do tax, but I do work with my clients on the tax side. And so I'm reviewing it. I'm like, oh, okay. So he did have, this is also a 20-year-old business. He had $10 million in distributions. Oh, okay, great. So I go on the balance sheet and I'm like, where is this? Like, I can't find the number in the balance sheet. As a distribution, it should be in the balance sheet. So
especially that number.
So I'm pinging the accountant because this was a bigger client. So they had an in-house accountant. I ping her and I'll say, where can I find this? Because I do not see this in the balance sheet you sent me. And she's like, I don't know. We got to ask the CPA. And I'm like, okay. So we reach out to the CPA. We're scheduling a call because at this point, I'm like, I need to understand what the heck is going on. Long story short, we get on a call with a client and the CPA, and I learned that the CPA has made a $400,000 mistake.
Wow.
In the taxes.
Yep.
And ooh. I am grinching over here. I'm just looking at my client's face over Zoom, and I'm like, this doesn't look any good. And in addition to that, I learned that the distributions were put in retained earnings.
Wow.
I'm like, what?
Right.
First of all, you're not supposed to touch retained earnings. What? And
right.
I was so mad. Anyway, I tried not to show it. Like, I tried to keep my cool because it's enough that my clients are frustrated. So I finally said to the CPA, said, okay, moving forward, let's please not have any more journal entries, period. And he's like, well, how do you mean no journal entries? How do you think we're going to do things? And I'm like, we're going to meet quarterly. You're going to review the books quarterly. And whatever needs to be done quarterly, the accountant will do. So that way we don't have to make blank journal entries that nobody understands what they are. And so he was not happy with me. CPA was so not happy with me because then he made a comment as if, well, and then we're meeting quarterly. And he said, he said, okay, so I will do the reviews and I'll make the journals. I'm like, oh, so thank you so much for doing the review. And I had to really like compose myself. I said, thank you so much for doing the review. But instead of making the journals, do you mind giving it to the accountant so she can do the journals? Only so when we have questions, she actually can answer when we asking them. And he's like, we haven't done this in 10 years. And I'm like, I understand change is hard sometimes, but it is what is needed right now. And then I just like inside, I'm just grinching. I'm like, it's doing right by the client. Okay. It might not be easy for you. I'm sorry. It's not easy for you, but it's what client needs. Because if the client is confused and then we find a mistake, a big mistake,
that large a mistake.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm like, come on. Like, anyway, I am that person that is just, I'm working on it. I'm working on being more.
Well, for what it's worth, we need more people like you out there.
True.
It is crazy to think that happens. And as I had mentioned earlier, 63 clients, and I've never not referred them to another solution. And it's terrible to say that, but and that's just kind of what we've evolved to.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And I think part of it is because people who do bookkeeping in some scenarios, or that are accountants that do tax preparation, they're not worried about bookkeeping. They're just taking the numbers and preparing the taxes. And the way that we structure that business model is completely messed up because they're trying to squeeze it all into a 4-month period. Right. And so it's, you're going to create those challenges. They don't want to do the bookkeeping along with it. I'm like, well, then that's bad info in, bad info out. Right. I'm like, you just can't. So anyway.
Speaking about that, like that client I was talking about, growth, he was going to double in size. So the other thing I said to him is we need to change the CPA. And he's like, so what's wrong with my CPA? I'm like, nothing. She is amazing. Like, I think she's great. And she is actually really good. I think you just outgrown her, because if I go to her with a simple question is this client structured properly to take advantage to the tax laws that exist?
Yep.
We did not make them up. The government gave them to us.
Right.
And her answer is like, no. Well, I know that's not true. Then already tells me that this particular CPA, you have outgrown her. And there's nothing wrong with that. So here's a big thing for entrepreneurs. And I see this all the time. Sometimes entrepreneurs will find a CPA they trust, they work with them for a few years, and they stick with them for forever. Now, that's not bad if that CPA is growing as your business grows. That is bad if your CPA is treating you as if when you were $100,000 company, but now you're $100 million company.
Right.
That's not the same thing, to be clear. And I had a client of mine also I spoke to today, and he said, okay, this ERC money, I spoke to my CPA and he said, we don't owe taxes on this. And I'm like,
I'm going
to ask you to double check this. So I said, like, I'm not a tax accountant. I'm going to ask you to double check this. But what every single other client of mine has done that has received the ERC is they had to amend the tax returns in the past and had to pay taxes on this. So please double check on this, because what I don't want to see is that you do get in trouble with the IRS on this.
Yeah.
But then again, back to now I'm questioning, like, is this CPA equipped to help this client at the level they're in? So that's a different story I'm going to have with him at another day. I wasn't going to have that conversation with him today, but it already was a red flag for me. I'm like, wait a second. Like, really? No. Mind you, this other client, I already had asked him, like, it's time for you to up your CPA skills. And now he's working with a CPA who's more strategic, who actually is teaching him about, here are all the tax laws that you can take advantage of that apply to your level. And it's so important. So back to is so, and I don't say this only for people. I tell my own clients, for me, it's like, there's a point. I tell my clients, there's a point where you are going to outgrow me. And it's totally normal. And it's exactly what I want you to do. This is why I equipped you to get to a point, because you're going to start having to have an accountant or a controller in-house. There's a point where it doesn't make sense to outsource anymore. It becomes expensive. You should be hiring in-house. But we equipped you, we educate you, so you know how to manage this person when it's in-house. So very, very important is to review relationships you're working with. And it doesn't matter if it's a CPA, it doesn't matter if it's an insurance broker, it doesn't matter who it is. It's always important to first check on those relationships, 2, see if they're servicing your business where you are right now, because as you're growing, it's very important to check on that. And 3, know if you're getting what you need.
Absolutely.
So
So well put. So well put.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
and it's funny because as you say that was one of the things that completely, after spending all the years I did in corporate, when I started coaching, I would constantly find myself so frustrated because I'm like, how do these business owners build this business and not understand these basic principles? And then it came to me, and then a lot of my clients, to be fair, a lot of my clients are service-based businesses, right? So yeah, they didn't get into the business to create a big business. They got into the business because they were good at landscaping, or they were good at HVAC, or they were good at a doctor. I have lawyers, right? I have accountants, and they're good at those skill sets, those professional skill sets. They're not necessarily good at running a business with employees and having all those other obligations within the organization. And so when they started it, they were just doing taxes, or they were just, they had a handful of legal clients, and now they have lawyers working for them and have law clerks and paralegals, and they've got 20 employees, and they've got to determine, should I move to a PEO and use, a PEO solution for managing or should I bring in-house HR, or, and now they're having these types of conversations because my office manager can't manage all of that anymore. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And shouldn't.
Exactly. Because they don't have the competency of that skill, of that. And so, but it baffled me because I've dealt with all of these things. I'm like, I know where my boundaries are. And I'm like, hey, I don't know anything about that. I know enough to know that I don't know about that. Right. I am smart enough to know that I don't know about that. So let's not, it's like, let's get a professional. And then I call somebody like you and say, okay, we need a CFO here because we're past my level of competency and we need to fix it. Right. And so I bring in lawyers, I bring in accountants, I bring in whatever other specialties that we need for those individual lawyers, right. For any of the legal decisions that they run into, but to your point, let me educate you, let me get you to a certain point so that you at least understand that when you're interviewing for that professional, you just mentioned it, that you at least understand what it is you're interviewing for. When you bring that person in, they're not going to run roughshod over you and take advantage of you, which is another concern I have.
The other thing, it's actually, you brought a very good point here. At my previous employment, I saw this firsthand. And what I teach my clients not to do is, at my previous employment, they used to bring up this like, oh, we need a account manager. But they've never managed an account manager. They have no idea what an account manager is supposed to do or what the job responsibilities are. I mean, they Google it and like, oh, okay, yeah, sounds good. Like this looks right. And so, and I've seen this time and time again, which is very impressive because I thought they would learn from their lessons, but it took them a long time. Because then they brought in an AI director and they've never done AI. And I'm like, so what is this person doing again?
Draining assets.
Very interesting. But the interesting thing is, like, every time they think about hires, I was like, I'm going to hire somebody to do this because I'm ready to do my first hire. Do you know how to manage this person? Do you know what this person is supposed to do? And how to manage them? And again, I've seen it in my previous employment, is that they don't. But then it becomes so expensive to let go of this person.
Yeah.
So expensive. So I tell my clients all the time, like, before you hire anyone, get a consultant. Instead of hiring HR full-time or part-time, get a consultant.
Right.
Because a consultant is going to tell you all things you need to know. Because their experience, they will do, yes, they cost more, but they also will do the job at half the time that an employee will do it. Plus, you don't have to manage them because as a consultant, they're supposed to be coming as professionals telling you what things need to be done.
Right.
So it's much different. And there's no difference in finance either. Finance is kind of the same situation. But I also tell my clients, get a consultant, learn, understand what this person is supposed to do. And then when you outgrow them, then you hire in-house. But at that point, you're going to know what this person is supposed to do and how to manage them. And not, I'm just going to hire this person because Google description looks good enough. So this person is now going to do what a Google description. I'm like, no, that's not how that's supposed to work.
Sounds more like how our federal government works.
I was not going to get there.
We're not supposed to do that on this show.
Stop me if
But
I'm lying.
it's so important. It's so important. And I always tell my clients, like, look, you need to look at cash as a limited resource.
Yep.
Every business has a limited resource. Now, I wish I can tell you that some businesses have unlimited. It's not true. Every single one of them has a limited resource. Now, be smart with that money. Would you rather keep some of it in your pocket or waste it to areas where you should not be wasting it? So the other thing I teach my clients is like how to keep most of that money in their pocket,
right,
while also running the most efficient business and growing business, because it's so important. So anyway, it's again, these lessons, and I always say as entrepreneurs, we do not have to know everything. I don't know everything.
right,
Marketing is not my thing. I, just like you, Eric, know what my things are not. It's not my thing.
right,
I just don't do well with it. But does it mean that I do not sit in my marketing meetings? Nope. I sit on them. I listen. Does it mean that I do not read the content that my team provides? Nope. I read every single one of them before it goes out. So it's my job to just make sure that, but I did not create it.
right,
I couldn't write for the life of me. I'll stick with numbers. But that means like I need to know a little bit of everything, but not everything, like
right,
fully
right.
completely everything.
Right.
And it's so important that you have the right team to guide you through the areas that you're not good at.
Absolutely.
Really, really important.
Absolutely. Well, this has been amazing. I think we think so much alike. Chris, I again commend you for an excellent recommendation to have her on the show.
I knew it.
So let me ask you this. I want to make sure I do you justice. What is an ideal client for you?
Oh God. So an ideal client for us, they are in professional services. So we do mainly work with clients that use a human talent as a service.
Okay.
And as you mentioned, that could be a range, could be technology firms. We have SaaS companies, security officers, consultancy firms, law firms. So again, a human talent to provide a service. Typically, they're in the range of between 3 to 10 million in revenue. I like to say we work with established businesses. Like they have to be established and really take finance serious when it comes to running their business and grow with ease. And more importantly, for us, it has to be a client that truly values relationships, because we're all about relationships here, and has that student mentality where it's like, no, I don't know it all, but I am willing to take the guidance and I am going to be involved because business is important to me. So this business is important to me and I want to make it work for all the reasons that you have. And, you know, again, different clients have different reasons, but we're not do it for you service kind of company. Every time I get a client who's like, I just want somebody to do this for me and just get it off my plate. I'm like, yeah, I understand. We're not that people. So I'm sorry, we're wrong fit for here. So again, because we want that collaborative approach. I'm not here to do things for you. We will do them. Like we'll do the accounting, we'll do the models, but you have to be involved. You need to review the numbers. You need to give feedback. When we create scenarios, you have to collaborate. And we guide them. Like at first time we do models with clients, some of them are just not comfortable. And like, I don't understand how to do this. Okay, I understand. So let's take it again. We meet our clients where they are. Let's take it one step at a time. And then they get to the point where like, I have a client now, he's like, I need another model. I had one client who did 9 models, like 9 scenarios before they made a decision.
Wow.
9 scenarios. I was like, this is impressive. I'm like, I loved it. I was like, wow, they're really, but that's what they needed to make the most for the business. So, hey, more scenarios, I'm all for it.
Excellent. Excellent. And what is there anything you'd like to share with our client base? Any thoughts, any feedback, or any more specifically, anything that you want to share in regards to you think it's important for your business?
I think back to what I was sharing before, pay attention to who are the people servicing your business. Let that be insurance brokers, tax accountants, or anyone else in between, and understand, are they servicing you and your business to what you need? I think that's really the gist and the most important piece. And if not, then you should not make a rush decision. First of all, meet multiple people and find the right people for you. Because they're out there, they exist. Yep. It just means that you're gonna have to spend a little bit more time to find the right person.
Absolutely. Amira, this has been phenomenal. I would love to have you on again, by the way, some point, maybe after tax season or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, thanks again. I really appreciate you being on, and great to meet you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It was such a great conversation.
Excellent. Yes.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thanks.